Thank you very much. Just for records, when the moderator gave me the red light, I stopped my presentation. Dr. Zuhdi took a few minutes more. It's not fair. Anyway, in a quick response to what Zuhdi said, I never uttered the word of takfir. Takfir means accusation of disbelief. In my presentation, I kept calling him my brother, my colleague, more than one time, as you witnessed. I talked about what I mentioned because I believe the topic, the title of the presentation, the debate I was invited to is, does Islam need to be reformed and how? The issue was not what is needed to be reformed in Islam. If you are interested in this topic, please let's set the time from now for another debate. And let the theme be, thank you for Scottsdale Community College, what is needed to be reformed in Islam, then we can compare the views. Number two, I would like to say this. The rally you mentioned about condemning terrorism, we imams, Muslim leaders, Islamic organizations condemn terrorism all the time. But excuse me, I don't want to say more than this. What you just presented is misinformation about what happened. And I heard you repeated that more than 10 times in the media. What happened that day, you distributed a flyer saying imams and Islamic centers are calling for a rally. I myself saw that flyer, I was not aware of it. Called other imams, guys, is this your job? Nobody of the imams was aware of this. We went to the Interfaith, Arizona Interfaith with Dr. Paul in Phoenix. We found Zuhdi there. Who said this? Dr. Paul told us this is Zuhdi. I asked Zuhdi, are you Imam? No. Are you leader of Islam? No. Then how come you put our names without at least having the courtesy to call us? Then we said, forget it. Let's go with the rally. We will go with the rally. And we said we are to condemn terrorism. But you started putting conditions. One of the conditions you put, nobody of you is allowed to speak without my permission. Nobody is allowed to carry any sign without my permission. This is why we dropped, not because we do not want to condemn terrorism. First day after 9/11, in my Islamic centers in Tempe, all the imams invited all the media, and we have press release to condemn terrorism immediately. Look, the separation, this issue of Muslims, you are now 1%, 2%, you respect the law. When you become majority, you will change the law. For sake of God, what democracy is? Democracy does not mean that what the majority vote we will apply. In the history of this country now, alcohol is legal under some circumstances with some restriction. 1915, in the American Parliament under the democracy, they issued a law to prohibit drinking alcohol and started sending people to jail. Was not that democracy? So look, if I am here practicing my right as a citizen to go to vote, democracy tells me, look, if weapons, concealed weapon permission, alcohol, medical drugs, whatever, you as a citizen have the right to say yes or no. Why you want to enforce me to say yes? If America now has a law to say vote, you like alcohol to be legal or illegal, for me as a Muslim, I will say I want alcohol to be illegal, just like the drugs. Because I believe with the spirit of my scripture, it is harmful. Just check the numbers. 500,000 people pay their life in America with the traffic accidents relating to DUI. I want to save these lives for sake of America. Okay, alcohol is okay there. For me as a Muslim, yes, I do not drink it, but I respect the law. But suppose majority of people here are Muslims and they're going to go practice their right in democracy and vote, yeah, I assume they will vote, yes, we don't want alcohol, make it illegal. If you insist to drink alcohol, look, go to any other country. Look at Europe now. Some European states have drugs legal, others have drugs illegal. We consider both to be democratic. And some people there across the border 15 minutes, where if they are in the state that says illegal, across the border 15 minutes, consume drugs, in the other city, other state that says legal, then they drive that. We are happy with both. We consider them both to be democracy. Why, if I, as a Muslim, want to be inspired by God and believe alcohol is evil, should be illegal, why do you want me to be radical? Yes, if we Muslims are majority, I think we'll practice our rights in democracy. Is that over or 1 minute? I see that, yeah, we're not 15 seconds. Okay, thank you very much. Look, Zuhdi, 57 countries in the world with majority of Muslims are secular now, and never heard anyone have majority of Muslims. None of them I heard that throw away the secular constitution. Look at Turkey. The president is Muslim, the prime minister is Muslim, and they still function with the secular constitution. So what kind of secularism we are talking about? I appreciate and respect and love the secularism presented in America. It's not like other secular society. If I have a hat, they will arrest me. Thank you very much.
Next, we'll hear Dr. Jasser for 5 minutes, and then we will open it up for questions.
You should have 5 minutes.
Thanks, appreciate it. You know, it's interesting, as I listened to this, he had another opportunity to take ownership and responsibility for radicalism and terrorism and to say that this is a problem we have to fix, and he again missed an opportunity to do that. And you wonder why radicalization is increasing exponentially. I confronted him with that question repeatedly in my remarks, and he's more focused on going over 20 seconds than actually dealing with the problem. And you know, the issue is that this is why we have leaders in our community that are so busy trying to apologize and find excuses and not taking ownership for ideas that separate our youth from this society. And you know what? I think we just realized one thing. He does not understand democracy. He thinks democracy is 50% of people plus one voting on something. That is not democracy. If you look, this country, as much as our founding documents are beautiful, we had a civil war until we finally understood that slavery wasn't part of democracy. We then had a civil rights movement 100 years later until we started to understand what it actually meant, what the Equal Protection Clause meant, what a lot of aspects to our Constitution meant. And yet, we hear people talk about democracy, and it sounds like, well, it's just a mob. That's actually mobocracy. When people vote and you go by the wish of the majority, that's mob mentality. And if you look at the Egyptians, actually, and this is, I think, one of the things I'd like all of you to leave here with understanding, is that he mentioned that I had a problem with the FBI reaching out to the Muslim community. They did not reach out to the Muslim community. They reached out to the groups that have the word Islam or Muslim in the yellow pages and happen to be activated by wanting to represent Muslims. You see, by definition, those are usually Islamists that want to unify and collectivize our group politically as Muslims. Most Muslims don't want that. And in Egypt, this debate is very normal. The Brotherhood right now is going around in Egypt trying to convince people that they're not going to put Sharia law in because they know if they say that, they won't ever get elected in Egypt. So, you know, this is why this issue is important. In the United States, because we're such a small minority, many people believe that these Islamist groups that have been organized since the late 60s with the MSA and the Islamic Society of North America somehow speak for all of our community. When in fact, the vast majority of Muslims don't belong to those groups because they came to this country to get away from that organization and that we are Americans that happen to be Muslim, not Muslims that demand to be American. And this whole concept, and just like in America, do you go to every group that has the word Catholic in front of it to find out what Catholics think? Do you go to every group that has Jewish in front of it to find out what all Jews think? Nobody would ever think that somehow they all represent the entire community. But yet, the imams get up, or Islamist groups get up, and they say that they represent the community. And they say that others of us do not. And yet, none of us are saying that we represent the community. But at the end of the day, what we have to understand is that we are diverse, that we are asking for a lot of this. You know, it's interesting that somehow he believes, he didn't really look back and see that the experiment in outlawing alcohol in America didn't work because freedom dictates that things be legal in order for it to work. That the government cannot mandate morality. That's the problem with Sharia and government. It's not that the principles are off. Yeah, I don't drink, but once government makes it mandatory, more people drink. It's like when you try to tell your kids not to do something, more of them will try to do it. And this is the American experiment that I think imams don't understand, that the imam, at least here, does not. And at least we need to also talk about the fact that I didn't hear from him. I challenged him. Are we as Muslims here to learn from American ideas of freedom and liberty and bring those into our interpretations? I didn't hear even one intonation about the beauty of American freedom to bring those ideas to Islam and the way we interpret it. The president of Turkey that he quoted so wonderfully said there's only one Islam, there's no moderate Islam, period. Because there's only one Islam. I mean, that's absurd. And the secular countries he's talking about are all secular autocracies, most of them, without any freedom. I mean, that's not secularism. Those are autocracies that oppress and whip their people like slaves in most of those countries. So, at the end of the day, we have a lot to learn from the American system that I think can allow us to hold on to our Islamic morality, our character, our humility, our honesty, all things that are Islamic, Christian, Jewish principles, without feeling that we have to legislate it through governance. I do want to mention one last thing. He mentioned my criticism of Governor Napolitano. Again, when she came to speak to our Eid ceremony and prayer, it would be just like the governor going to a Catholic church on Christmas Day and giving a stump speech. I think most of you would have been offended as Christians or as Jews on Yom Kippur to have a head of state come to your service on a spiritual day and give a political speech. That is what the lead, and it wasn't her fault. If you read the op-ed that I wrote back in 2003, I said it wasn't her fault. She was exploited by political Islamists that brought her in to make a point. And that's what I think was deceptive about what he was saying. Thank you.